Hello and welcome to Business Reporter's Future of Transport campaign, hosted by The Telegraph Online. I'm Alistair Greener, and today I'm talking to Andrew Pester from the British Parking Association. Good morning.
Good morning.
So what are the biggest trends when it comes to the parking industry at the moment?
Well, I think the key trend is that society in general wants to move to a cleaner, safer and less congested world. It is so important. It impacts us all on a daily basis. There are millions more journeys happening every day. And those journeys, each and every one of them starts with parking activity and ends with a parking activity. And effective parking management is crucial to make sure that towns and cities don't become congested. And where you don't have that effective parking management, what you see is confusion and chaos.
We live in a very technological world, so how is that technology affecting the parking industry?
This is such an important issue for our sector and the broader transport sector, and I think it's quite clear now that technology is really driving change and at a rate faster than we've seen probably for the last 100 years. And as a sector, we are very responsive to that change, and we work very closely with our members and wider stakeholders to start to drive through smarter parking technology. But as we move forward, it will be really critical that we do continue to embrace that. There is very much a future for parking, and critically, whatever the future car may look like, however it's charged, cars will still need to pick up passengers, they will still need to recharge, and they will still need to rest. So effective parking management is very important now, as it will be in the future. As we look at the transport systems more broadly and new models that are emerging, it's really important to consider data. And data will drive future development in our sector as well. And parking data is a critical component of that, as autonomous cars, connected vehicles and consumers look to find, book and pay for parking as they go about their day-to-day business.
It's interesting you talk about that, because one of the areas where people are concerned about are private parking operators, who seem to be developing a bit of a bad reputation.
The key here is the contractual relationship between the landowner and the parking operator. And as an association, we're working very hard with landowners to encourage them to think about the outcome that they want to achieve from parking on their land. And then parking operators can work with those requirements to ensure a successful, effective parking management operation. As an association, we've been raising standards for the last 50 years, and a key moment in 2007 was the introduction of a code of practice for the private parking sector. In 2012, we also introduced an independent appeals body. Since that time, we now have another code of practice in the sector, and there's possibility that further codes of practice will emerge over time. And we're very concerned that there could be a race to the bottom in relation to standards, and that's something we just don't want to happen. So we've been campaigning for quite a while, working with government to bring forward a single standard setting body with a single code of practice and a single independent appeals body. And absolutely delighted that Greg Knight MP has brought forward a private members bill looking specifically at this issue. And also in Scotland, Murdo Fraser MSP has brought forward a members bill there also looking at this topic. We're now working very closely with parliamentarians and government and stakeholders more generally to push for the right outcome as we move forward.
Another area of concern for many people are councils and the perception that they're making a huge amount of profit, and people ask whether or not that's justified.
The majority of councils don't make a profit from parking activities. And indeed, many local authorities don't make any money from parking, some actually make a loss. But actually through effective parking management and the operation themselves, surpluses can arise. When they do arise, there are strict rules around local authorities how they report and how they manage incoming expenditure from that activity. And we always encourage local authorities to be very transparent about how they reinvest those revenues back into local services.
You talked about stories in the media about parking. One of the biggest stories at the moment is about hospital parking, with some people claiming it's just a tax on the sick.
Hospital parking is a very sensitive issue and very political at the moment as well. But the key thing for managing hospital car parks is ensuring access for patients to the hospital. What we have at the moment is a situation where many car parks, the demand simply outstrips supply by a long way. And it's really important for hospitals to think about the outcome that they want to achieve within their car parks. And that outcome will potentially be a blend of charging to manage demand. It may also include concessionary fares, for example, concessionary charges. And that's really important. And when we don't have those types of controls in place, as was the case in Scottish and Welsh hospitals where charges and controls were removed from hospitals, what we saw was that the hospital car parks themselves were filling up with commuters and staff and patients who were coming for their appointments, or people coming to see their loved ones in hospital were having to then park out in the surrounding areas. The impact of that was congestion on the roads. A number of bus services were being cancelled because they couldn't simply get down streets. Local residents were very concerned about school children and being knocked down because they couldn't get sufficient visibility as they crossed the road. And the overall impact of the removal of the controls was that the most vulnerable in society were the hardest hit. And that is such a powerful reason for why we do need that effective parking management that works. It's also worth remembering that the provision of parking isn't free. Somebody somewhere has to pay for it, and those costs come from maintaining the car park, whether it's maintaining the verges or resurfacing, etc. If parking is provided for free, then it would be the healthcare budget which would need to pick that up. From our perspective, we think the healthcare budget should be for health and not the provision of parking.
Now, we know that the British Parking Association is the voice of the parking sector, but tell us a little bit more about what it is that you actually do.
The British Parking Association is the recognised authority and the leading authority within the parking sector. We've got 50 years of experience, and we work very closely with government, stakeholders, members in driving excellence in parking for all. And how do we do this? Well, we do it by driving standards forward, we do it by enhancing knowledge within the sector and developing professionalism across the board.
Well, it's fascinating finding out more about a sector that we think we know all about, but actually to find a greater insight into it has been really, really interesting. So thank you very much indeed, Andrew Pester from the British Parking Association.
Thank you.